Hey, I'm JP Karliak with NerdsVote, and here is my co-founder.
Hi, I'm Courtney Taylor. Nice to be
Right.
here. Thanks for joining us.
And we're here today for Fan the Vote. We are partnering with Streamily for the first time. Thank you for having us, Streamily, to do some fan interactions with some of your favorite voice actors and personalities, and also answer some of your burning questions about voting and to make sure you're registered and all sorts of stuff, thanks to our other partner, Headcount. So, Courtney,
That's right. We have,
yeah, a little bit more.
we have headcount.org here. We have Damien, who, if you have questions about voting, registering, updating your information, you can throw them into the comments and he will jump on them and we will answer those questions for you or get you to some resources where you can get more information. We have all of our amazing friends joining us today. So we're going to be talking about why voting is important to us as individuals, and we'll maybe throw in a little dirt about some of our upcoming projects because we are actors after all. And we're going to do a couple little giveaways. And if you want to check out the streamily.com store, streamily.com/nerdsvote, you'll see that everyone here has got their headshots and good stuff that you can get signed. Their portion of proceeds will be going back to NerdsVote to help us get the nerd word out about the importance of voting. And there'll be signings going on this weekend and throughout into the next couple of weeks as we raise funds and raise awareness for voting. So thanks for being here.
Sweet. Cool. So why don't we let's meet our rogues gallery here. Let's start with the lovely lady below me, Sissy Jones.
It's like it's kind of a crapshoot because it could be below you, but on someone else's screen it could be below Lindsay. Who knows?
I'm treating this like Hollywood Squares. So
hello.
Oh, good, because Parv's perfect.
Hi. Thanks for having me. What am I supposed to like? You may know me from such titles out. Like what?
Yeah,
what,
let's do the Ting Tings meme and just be like, my name is Look.
Oh man, I should have brought in my headshots and just kidding. I am a voice actor. I work in a lot of stuff. I'm currently the voice of Lilith in the Owl House, and I've got some of these babies for people today.
Yay!
If you're tuning in. I was also the voice of Kaguya Otsutsuki in Naruto, and this guy will be going away to somebody today. I was Delilah in Firewatch and a bunch of other stuff, and I'm just happy to be here because voting is important.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Sissy. Parv, hi.
Hi, everyone. It's me, Whoopi Goldberg, Center Square.
I was going Paul Lind. That's
right, yeah. I only know Paul Lind references from Drag Race, so that's how like
well,
middle
I am
Gen
a
X
drag
I
queen
am.
in a woman's body, so.
Hi, friends. I'm Parvesh China. You can call me Parv. My big voiceover break was Blades and Rescue Bots, and currently you can see me in Centaur World as Zulius. And should we like break NDAs today? Should we just tell? No. Oh no. Stephanie said, "Don't do that. You won't work again."
Stephanie's a director. She's like, no.
Come on, it's just Disney and Netflix. These little upstarts. What are they going to do? Come after us? They do. They will.
They will.
And just with my Asian sister, I thought this would be a nice political shirt. I have like too many of them, so now I feel like my neighborhood just thinks I only wear like black and red, and I just got the Lunar New Year version coming of this one. Also, I'm a little chunky up top, so that's a nice tip for those who also have the man boobs. Just a little graphic, a little writing on the top, and it just covers up everything. I'm putting them away.
Same.
Vote.
Awesome. God, I'm so glad you're here, Parv. Stephanie Shea.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm Stephanie Shea, probably best known for doing the current voice of Sailor Moon in the Viz and Netflix dubs. Also Julie and The Legend of Korra. I was gonna wear my NerdsVote shirt, but I've gained pandemic weight, and I was like, ooh, I need to buy different sizes of these shirts.
You do. This is the large. The medium was too tight.
Yeah,
The medium,
and
Stephanie,
and
I understand.
yeah, and I'm a flat-chested gal, so and it was tight up here. So I'm just saying I relate to anybody out there. I was the opposite of all those like I lost 200 pounds during the pandemic. I'm like, who is doing that? But yes, I big on voting. I actually volunteered as a poll worker pre-pandemic. It was the best and most rewarding experience of my life. But more on that later. You guys know how to Google and IMDb, so that's it for the credits.
Yeah, we will definitely get back to the poll worker stuff, though. Thanks, Stephanie. Lindsay.
Hey guys, I'm Lindsay Rousseau. You might know me as Alita 1 from the Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy on Netflix. Bunch of video games, got some cool stuff coming out in the next 6 weeks to 2 months. Yeah, just happy to be here. And I have voted in every single election that I've ever been able to since I was able to vote, like everything from school board to, student body, whatever. So yeah, there we go.
She is a gold star voter, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, Lindsay. And Ash.
Hi, it's Ash
There we go.
Soroka. You can't hear me? Can you not hear me? Is this thing on?
All right,
You
you're
can
just
hear
on
me,
a little
right?
delay.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
on a delay. Got it. Well, everybody, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm really here to support getting everybody informed and everybody just the information that they need, because I believe voting is so important, especially now. And the midterm election is really, really important. So I'm just so grateful for people like you who are out there doing this work all the time. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here and just be a part of all of it. And you probably know me mostly as Tali Zora from the Mass Effect trilogy.
Oh, her.
Awesome. Cool. An amazing group of voice actors. Thank you so much for being here. But we also need to introduce our headcount rep, Damien. Damien, tell us about yourself and the work you do.
Hi all, my name is Damien, and I've been with Headcount for about 14 years. Today, actually, this week is our 18th birthday, so we've been an organization out there for 18 years doing voter registration. We started at concerts, we do music festivals as well, but we definitely do a lot more civic engagement stuff at local events. We partner with a lot of musicians, artists, comedians, organizations like NerdsVote, and we just love to, engage with people and let them know, options, education stuff with voting.
Cool. Well, thanks for being here, Damien. Hopefully we have a bunch of questions from the chat. If anybody has questions for Damien about voting, or if you have just questions for the group about anything at all, we'll get to those throughout this whole stream. So the general question I'm going to throw out to everybody to get started is, tell us a memorable experience that you had voting. Could have been like just something really powerful, could have been something funny, could have just been some election or student body election, as you mentioned, Lindsay, that you voted in that is memorable to you. The one that I always tell, and Courtney is always like, oh my God, is that my dad, I used to vote, my dad's polling place was at this firehouse in Pennsylvania. And my dad, and it was one of those curtains that you'd like pull the thing. And when I was little, let's say like 6, so to the point where I needed to be picked up to see what was on the levers, my dad would just let me flip any levers I wanted. Now, thinking back about it, I think he probably put me down and then fixed it and then turned the thing. But he may have just let me vote on anything. And I really wish I did more research as a 5-year-old. about which candidates I was voting for. But there we are.
Was not great then.
Who else?
I remember one odd thing was just a tip, friends, don't wear the candidate or the party affiliate that you want. Like I know people are savvy now, but I just remember like a couple elections ago, you'd wear your your Obama shirt, you'd wear your whatever you just were proudful of. And I just remember being like a younger voter, like, no. Like I just was grateful I had like a coat to cover up. But I just remember that being like a tip, being like, I honestly thought like, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong already? And they're just like, it's just, you can't like, I think it's electioneering or promoting your candidate. So on election day, and I defer to poll worker Stephanie, who might know more about this, but I just thought, yeah, that's one big tip. Don't be like me in 2008. Cover up your Obama shirt. I will wear my Obama shirt at the next election too.
That's a good question. Can you wear an old candidate who's not running?
Honestly,
can you wear your old Mitt Romney shirt?
Look, there's a person in charge of each polling place, but there's no like real hard and fast like police, and we all have guidelines. So I would just avoid wearing anything that can be construed as any kind of political statement, because you don't know whoever's in charge of that polling place how strict they're going to be in interpreting electioneering, So wear your Obama underwear,
right,
so that it's covered, but not your Obama shirt.
Your Honest Obama socks are okay, but and your NerdsVote is okay. I've worn NerdsVote. Well, at least I wore my NerdsVote.
That should be, because it's not any sort of political affiliation or pushing a specific agenda.
But if you live in an area where you're afraid that maybe poll workers are going to be stricter in some ways, then just wear your old like Ocean Pacific. Why am I going to say Ocean Pacific T-shirt? That's from the 80s.
Is that with you wear your bongo jeans with that?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wear my skin.
At least say your apple bottom jeans. Come on.
There we go.
So I remember, like for me, 2016, even though it did not turn out the way I would have liked it to have turned out, was the first year that I had my two kids, and I was able to take both of them with me to drop off my ballot and to tell them how important it was to be there. And my oldest remembers, my little was like 1, but that was a really, really special day. And it was pre-pandemic, so it wasn't like, oh, people, but just being there to turn it in together was really special.
There's a question in the chat, just really quickly. Damien, as far as Kasir Avranthina wanted to know, is registering to vote difficult? I can't vote yet, but I will be able to soon. So what's the deal with like pre-registration if you're not 18 yet?
So there is a bunch of states that you are able to pre-register either at the age of 16 or at 17. So that once you actually turn 18, you're automatically registered to vote. You can actually go to headcount.org/state, and depending on what state you live in, you can see if you're eligible to either pre-register or even if you can register to vote online. Some states still don't let you do that, but you can definitely find that there.
So that's headcount.org/state.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Lindsay, sorry, didn't mean to step on you.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I don't know if it's like unique or interesting, but I've actually never voted on election day. I've always either voted absentee, because like, okay, so college, absentee, Army, absentee. And then when I came to California, it was usually I'd take part in early voting. So I think another thing that's really important to point out is like, check if your state has early voting. Like California has a really generous early voting period. It's like 2 or 3 weeks. So you don't have to worry about standing in lines on election day. Or like, I know Sissy, you said you dropped something off. Like you can go to the polling place and drop off your absentee ballot. So it's like, if you're worried about lines or people, check if your state has absentee. I know, unfortunately, a lot of states have been getting rid of things like early voting and absentee voting, but check it out.
Definitely our site that I just mentioned has that info as well.
And check your registration status, because even though you may have voted in the last cycle, things can get dropped, and luckily in California, we are very we allow a lot of people to vote, and there's something called a provisional ballot. So if you show up to your polling place and let's say for some reason you got dropped off of the voter register rolls, you can still vote. It just means it's provisional, which means that it's going to be counted later after they check and verify that you're not trying to vote twice or trying to pretend to be someone you're not, but you can still show up and vote. So, but I would check, because there are people who showed up and were like, oh, I thought I was registered, or they're at a different location. This happened, I think the one time I was volunteering as a poll worker, I was right next to a recording studio, which was really nice because I saw a lot of voice actors come in, some of my friends included, and one of the voice actors came in and is like, I'm actually registered at a different location. Can I vote here so I don't have to drive an hour away since I'm here? And I was like, yes, you can, but you would, because you're not on our rolls, you would have to vote provisionally so that they check that you're not also voting there, So, yeah. So check, even though you're like, I know I'm registered, just double check. It takes 2 seconds.
Smart tip. Yeah. It's interesting just how it varies from place to place, and whether you can, as you said, like it is so generous in California about our early voting period and our ability to vote by mail. And, there's plenty of states that have had that for a while, but it does vary. So I'm going to propose a giveaway trivia question for anybody that's in the chat. And if you don't know the answer to this, you can go to the website that Damien mentioned, headcount.org/state, and get the answer for this. But throw in the chat, what is your state's policy on voting by mail? Do you have it? Is it automatic? Do you have to register for it? It could just be a sentence. You don't have to put like the whole thing, but just like give us a brief summary of like, I live in Oregon and this is what we do. If you throw that in the chat, then you may win something that Sissy has brought with her. So yeah, let's see some of that. Ash, how about you? Voting
Sissy.
stories.
I love it. What'd you say?
I said, how about you? Voting
I was
stories.
thinking.
Yeah.
No, I heard that. Yeah. I was actually like polling through all of them in my head as I was listening, and there are so many different stories from different years. I think one of the important stories that come to mind is early in my voting career. I just remember being really overwhelmed by all of the people on the ballot and feeling like I just felt overwhelmed. And a group of us got together and we split up. We got, somebody was in charge of getting all of the information out to the people in the group, and we had a party, and we split up in like very small chunks to do research on the different, all the different candidates and, everything we were voting for. And it was so informative, and it was really fun, and it was really empowering to actually know not only about the person I was voting for, but also about what they actually do, because I really don't know all of them, all the ins and outs of all of the positions. I didn't know. And I will always remember it. And we did it then, we then repeated that because it was really great for everybody, and everybody walked away with more information than they had before. And then it felt so good to go in and vote and actually have information about what I was casting my vote for. So that was one that stands out for me. Like, I remember being just the overwhelm, and it's easy to turn that around.
For real. It's especially in California where there's so
many
things on the ballot. And we do have frequent elections, and there's, in a city like Los Angeles, there's a ton of stuff to vote on as well. And the tendency is to want to really be like, oh, you know what, I don't know any of this. But we've started to really, like, we had someone on one of our streams had said, like, that their family does like a Thanksgiving, like on voting day, where then they all get together and have dinner at someone's house. And I was like, that is so awesome. Like, A, yes, we should have a national holiday for voting, but B, I just love the idea that you get together with your friends, you share information, and then you celebrate with cocktails or, a meal with your family, to really, underscore how important this is. Because if you're not helping drive, then, nobody is. Your voice matters, and all of our voices together matter.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
And
yeah.
Oh, because I was going to say, I love, because, California is really good about sending out samples.
Everyone in the chat who is just...
Court, sorry, you were cutting out a sec. What were you saying, Lindsay?
Oh, no, I was going to say, I really love that you brought that up, Ash, because, California sends out the sample ballots. And one thing I do when I get that sample ballot is I usually take, sometimes up to 2 weeks, literally Googling and researching every single person referendum that's on that ballot. And I think one of the things that people forget about is, oh, it's not a presidential election, it doesn't matter. But like in California, we have so many referendums and ordinances that'll show up on the ballot that can really impact your day-to-day life. And I think people tend to forget some of those things, everything from like zoning requirements to, I know the last election we had a lot of things that had to do with like tenants' rights and things like that. So it's really important to take that time to really understand, because the synopsises that they give you aren't that great and can sometimes be misleading.
Yeah,
I believe the synopsises a lot of times. Well, I don't know about the ordinance, like the little propositions, but with the people running, lots of times they self-submit it. So it can be misleading, I like to go through, I like to kind of like, various publications will give voting guides, and sometimes they'll say give endorsements, but I like to go to the ones that kind of like break down pros and cons and have arguments on both sides and stuff, because it's a great place to start, to be like, wait, and then use those resources to further research. The other thing to keep in mind is that sometimes, especially on when it's a non-presidential election, but even on presidential elections, some of the things you're voting on are limited by your district and where you live. So like if someone, if I'm living in Burbank, I may be voting on certain things that doesn't apply to my friend who lives in Hollywood, So that's another thing to kind of like be aware of. It's sounding complicated, but I think there's a way to make it fun, and honestly, it's empowering. You feel good when you do it. And then when the new year comes around or the new period comes around, you're just way more informed. So you're not like, wait, I have to pay this tax, or, oh my gosh, this parking rule is like, you're like, actually, you had a hand in determining whether that happened or it didn't happen, whereas your other friends were like, what is going on? Who makes up these rules? And you're like, well, you kind of
who voted in the sheriff?
Yeah. And I love, Ash, I just love that you brought it up to begin with, because we actually partner with this organization called Voter Study Party, who I actually just talked to this morning, and we're getting back together to prep another guide for throwing a voting study party, especially for midterm elections and all the elections throughout the year. But it's just a helpful little guide that we used for last year's election, and we'll update for this one, about just how to throw something like that, throw a gathering like that, and how to divvy up the research, and how to make sure that it's fun and really easy and doesn't feel like a burden, especially in California that has so many things on the ballot. Okay.
What's Voter Study Party's website address? Do you have that handy?
That's a great I will pull that up.
I also want to mention in the chat too, there's a couple people who are who have mentioned that they're other countries. And of course, we're talking about, American elections right now, but it's so important in every country to get involved and stay involved and steer where your country goes. We've talked a lot with different folks about how, passing certain laws dictates also what you see in the media. We did an interview with Rebecca Sugar and Ian Jones-Cordy on our Between Two Nerds Instagram, where they talked about how, things that they had wanted to put into things that Rebecca had wanted to put into Steven Universe were sort of dictated by what the laws were in place at that time. And so in particular, she wanted to put in gay marriage, and it wasn't legal then. And so the network was able to say like, well, it's not, we can't. And then when that lost, they were able to do that. And there was, they had recourse to say, hey, we can put this in. And so it actually has a direct line to the types of media and art and books and everything else that you read and see. And that's really important.
Yeah.
I just wanted to somebody Kassir, because if I'm butchering your name, commented that they said voting scares me because I'm so indecisive. And I just wanted to bring up the fact that when you vote, you don't have to vote on you can leave parts of the ballot blank if you don't know, if you just can't decide. It's not like a test where you get penalized for leaving something blank. Also, what I didn't know until I was working as a poll worker is like, if you mess up, you can come and get a new ballot. You get up to 3 tries. After I give you on the third one, if you mess up, and then I can't give you any more ballots. So.
Yeah. And, I think voting study parties are a great way to get less indecisive and feel like you're more informed when you either vote by mail or also that's the great thing about voting by mail is you get to breathe and just there's no pressure. Like you can ruminate about it for a couple of days. Like, it's awesome.
And you can also make sure to bring your information with you.
I was going to say, fill out the sample
temporary. Bring that sample ballot with you because it can feel a little pressury if you have 100 people in line behind you and people with dogs and babies and things like that. And so you just get in there and you're just like, I got this. All you have to do is focus on making sure that you actually fill in the right circle. That's about as much as I can handle. So I'm always happy to have my preliminary marking done.
Yeah. Streamily threw in the chat the voting study party link. They're our partners, and we'll have more from them soon. And I think we've got a nice group of people that have told us how vote by mail works in their state. So, Damien, I'm going to have you pick for us a number between 1 and 9.
Let's go with 4.
Number 4. Of course, you had to pick the one that I don't know how to pronounce. Liziel? Let's see.
Liziel.
Yes.
Liz. Yes.
Yeah.
Yay.
You are the winner.
Yay!
So somebody from Streamily will connect with you to get your information, and we will get you a piece of merch from Sissy Jones.
Yay!
Don't forget to say what size you want.
I've got a couple t-shirt. So awesome. Yeah.
And thank you everyone for putting the information in there. And for our friend in the chat who said they haven't registered to vote yet. I'm curious, is it because you're too young or is it because you just haven't been interested? I'm just curious, and I would love to know if something like this is enough to make you change your mind to register to vote if you are old enough and able to.
And I just want to give big ups to someone just said that they tweeted the vote by mail information. I feel like you get extra points for that. So if you want to hit us up on Instagram for NerdsVote, I will send you some NerdsVote swag. Just go ahead and message us at Instagram vote and say, I'm the one who tweeted the information. And then there's like 17 people who are like, it was
me.
Thank you.
You know how
Cool.
some of the people, some of our lovely friends in the chat are mentioning, folks, it does seem a little complicated. Notice how like a bunch of us, we all kind of went into like our own stories of like when we first voted at 18 and like things that might have gone wrong. Just know that there are people out there in our country who don't want all of us to vote. There have been things that have made it hard and difficult. Why isn't Election Day in America on a weekend, if not a national holiday? All these rules about in certain states how you can't even give water, and how I used to donate to like pizza to the polls, because once you get in line after the polling location has closed, say it ends at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. in your state, if you're in line before then, you can vote, even if you end up voting, which sadly has been happening, hours later. So we know that this is a problem. Our hope is when you're at my old age that this will be much better and easier. But why is it so hard? Because they don't want necessarily younger people, minorities, people of color, the LGBTQIA++ Two-Spirit community. There's elements in here. So just know that it will get easier when more of us vote. And as I think Lindsay mentioned about like voting every election, I did Clinton, the first one was my first election. And then I waited until like Kerry in 2004 or I'm getting it all wrong because I'm 42. But the people who do vote for every midterm, we've got a big midterm coming where we do need people to vote. Everyone across the spectrum. Just know that the people who have had it pretty easy and good and it going for them, because they vote, they have the laws that support them. My parents, immigrants who came here, my mom, became a citizen. It was eye-opening. And I still can't believe that the immigration tests that they give to people, I don't think many Americans, myself included, and I had AP US history, barely got a 3, so I had no college credit. But know that it's hard. It is hard. And we want to give as much information as possible to make it easier. And we will hopefully have it easier by the time you guys are 42.
My mom also took her immigration test, and I helped her. Like what I didn't know any of the question. I couldn't answer, I don't think, anything on it.
Right? Name 3 branches of government. Name 3 Supreme Court cases. Citizens United, guys. We know some.
I can do that now.
Please,
but
yeah, right. We can now, because we've all kind of like had like a civics course in these last few years,
right?
Especially.
And sometimes you need a little refresher when things get important. Also, I have a just to throw another giveaway in there, because that's what I talk about, Parv. Please name 3 Supreme Court cases. Throw them in the comments, and you can. I will. Whoever gets chosen. I have a Witch Queen code for the new Destiny 2 that is dropping on February 22nd. So if there are any fans out there, that is for you. And if not, then I will give you something else. A shot if you want something from me, or you can just go to Sissy and ask for a t-shirt.
Parv, I love that you brought that up. And also I love Micah, I'm sorry if it's not one of those two, that said voting is still easier than doing taxes, which is true. So yeah, remember that. Damien, I want
But Mika, do your taxes too. Do your taxes.
Please do your taxes.
Right.
It's not one or the other.
You can also pay someone to do your taxes, but you can't vote for you.
You can't pay someone to vote for you. Damien, can you tell us, like, from HeadCount's perspective, what are some ways that we can, as we're all on our way to being 42, as Parv said, advocate to make sure that voting rights in our area, in our state, are not impinging our rights to vote, but rather uplifting and helping our rights to vote?
Actually, we currently have a action called Save the Vote. Let me see if I can get a link for that. I know we have a texting for that. Give me one quick moment. Should know these off the top of my head.
It's all good. There's a lot of links, I'm sure.
Yeah. So if you can actually go to headcount.org /save-the-vote. It's our action that we started last year, where you can actually see how easy it is in your state, where it ranks to register to vote. And you can also send a message to your local legislator saying that you want them to do more about making voting, fair and easy. And it's been a great program that we started. I know last year we were planning to, get 50,000 people to do the Save the Vote thing. I think we ended up doing 150,000, which was just great. Like, over exceeded our expectations.
I want to tangent off of that, and that I think, so the US has, the percentage of people who vote in elections is pretty abysmal. It's like in the 30s, depending on, where you live in the country. But I think, we've unfortunately ended up in a situation where a lot of people take this country for granted and don't even think about voting. I'm not going to get into it. I have a lot of opinions about the Iraq War, but I was there for their first elections, and I vividly remember people in these long lines for hours and hours and hours, and literally coming out with the purple finger, crying because they had never in their life been able to vote. And the fact that they were, and again, not talking about how things have ended up, but the fact that they were actually able to feel like their voice mattered in an election was so emotional for them. And then you just look at our own history. I mean, like the women who literally gave their lives for the suffragist movement, and then obviously the civil rights movement, like people who have literally fought and died just for this right to have their voice heard. I think we can't let ourselves get complacent anymore, seeing everything that's been going on in a lot of these different states with restrictions, everything, and disenfranchisement and gerrymandering.
And there's so much that you can do. I mean, we live in a time where it is easier than ever to reach the people who are your elected officials, right? So I always do this where I just have everyone on so this is my phone, and I've got girlfriend and Alex on speed dial, and even if they're not, like, if they're people elected or people that you didn't vote for, they're still representing you, your state, your city. So put them on speed dial and let them know how they're doing. You'll fill out a Yelp review for that restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Do the same thing for the people that are running, the politics around your life, because they need to hear from you. And, you can use anything from like ResistBot, if that's your thing, to calling directly, emails, mails, Twitter, any kind of social media. There's just a million opportunities to make your voice heard. And it is so important. So I urge you to take just a few minutes, look up I have the Washington switchboard as well as their local numbers, just in case, sometimes the Washington switchboard is full. So I like to call them at home.
I would also love to throw out there that I did some research a couple of years ago about elections that were decided by 1 to 10 votes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shocking number. So like, there's a lot of people that say, oh, my vote doesn't matter. My vote doesn't count. Actually, it really super does. Like, there are literally elections in this country that have been decided by 1 vote. 1. So,
and they're the local ones too that are directly affecting you in some of these cases where it's coming down to 1, 2, 3, 4 votes, and some very large ones that have come down to 100 votes, right? But those local ones, man, that is, as we were talking about earlier, so important to like, that's a direct line to your life of what your streets look like, the infrastructure of your city, making what kind of prosecution is happening for criminals, what the school board, what your kids, if you have them, are doing. I think we've all seen in the last couple of years, even if you don't have children, which I don't, but, following along and seeing, people taking their kids, putting them in school, taking them out, masks, no masks, all of this stuff has far reaching effects. And even if you don't have kids, you're paying taxes. So you got skin in the game.
Yeah. Well, like San Francisco just recalled 3 school board members, which is almost unheard of, like a recall for school board, because parents were like, we're fed up, we're done. And yeah.
And that's also voting. That's
Right.
signing, voting. That's,
You're right.
likey.
Did any of you think, because I did not think in my teens or my 20s that I would still be thinking and talking about just the act of voting. It made me realize, like, oh, when I was younger, I'm like, oh, just like the fun stuff. I'm like, yay, Earth Day, yay, vote for, even this feels like a long time ago. Vote for the candidate who, was there when, like, I see a lot of, like, the Supreme Court cases coming up in the chat, which is awesome. But yeah, gay marriage, that was a big one. That's a big one that,
it seemed like something that was.
And it's just amazing that, how these elections and voting, it's still something that we are still talking about. And now I get, like, why the old neighbors, why they knew something. They did. Well, they know. I mean, when we joke about older friends, please, Lindsay.
Oh, I was going to say, like, the Equal Rights Amendment has never been passed. Like, the fact that really it's 2022 and the ERA has never been passed. I had this conversation with she's 92, a dear friend of the family, and she was very active in the women's rights movement in the 70s, and she remembers having the only Planned Parenthood meeting in her tiny little town in Arizona, and literally crying when Roe v. Wade was passed. And she was 92-year-old woman is like, Lindsay, what is going on? How are we having this conversation 50 years later? She was just, so things that, like you said, we think are taking for granted are no longer.
Also, what you were saying earlier about, like, voting is a privilege, and I think that so much of our country has been complacent. Like, it's just something that's expected, and like you said, Courtney, like, we all fought, not us, but all of our right to vote. The whole history of our country is based on fighting for the right to make our own, to represent people, to represent us, so that we have a voice. And it is a privilege, and it is being taken away. There's 19, thanks, Par, for what you said. There was 19, I think more than 19 states that passed legislation that took away, that made it much, much harder to vote. And it is focused on certain groups. And it's the only way to become an actual democracy, being, ruled by the many and not by the few speaking for the many, is for each of us to vote. It's the only way.
Lindsay, I'm so sorry, but, like, I know you have your background with the military in Iraq, but I think of, if you want to, and my parents, I'm of Indian descent. And if you want to look to where sometimes the second term of a problematic ruler, when they do get one, India is one of the home to the biggest Muslim populations on the planet. More than what we traditionally think more Middle Eastern countries, but India has a huge Muslim population. The current prime minister, who's a little bit more on the right, conservative, authoritarian side of things, didn't do much his first term. His second term, his version of Congress, there are people like him, they want to kick the Muslims out. How do you do that? How do you kick out hundreds of millions of people? But they're trying. So and Lindsay, I brought you up because, like, when we talk about majority or minority rule, Iraq, Saddam Hussein, his government were the minorities that led the majority of a country. And Lindsay, please jump in here, because if you know more,
Oh no,
that
you're
just
absolutely
shows
right.
like,
Because obviously,
please.
you know, the big issue up there was the Kurds. You know, the Kurds were the ones who were taking the brunt of it. But yeah, when you're talking about like the Sunni and the Shia, you know, it's the same in this country. We have probably next election, the majority of the people do not represent who is controlling the power in government. And that was the exact same thing that happened in Iraq. It was like, no, you don't represent us. You know, so yeah, absolutely.
It's a telling thing. And I grew up, you know, like just a very proud, like American kid, thinking like, we're the best country in the world. We do this, and we are never going to do that. We'll never do what Germany happened in 1930s. We'll never do what China did, or, you know, or Vietnam, other countries. But it's very tenuous. And as we've seen after the January 6th insurrection, it is very precarious. And right now, yes, we know this. We do know that there's a majority of people in this country are Democratic. And this is not like even a bias thing. It's just factually. We know that the numbers in Congress, that 50 senators who represent one side represent 40 to 80 million more people. So it's a dangerous thing that we might get into. So that's why it's very important that any minority, marginalized community, your vote is the one that happens the most, because that's where all of a sudden a town of 500,000 people who might look like me, we get one ballot box. But other, more affluent Caucasian white majority towns, why do they get 100? So there's just an awareness, and I'm speaking to, we know that a lot of people who like the voiceover community, it's very inclusive. We have queer folks, we have people on every spectrum, we have people of every race and gender expression. I'm so proud to be with a majority, as it should be, women, women led. The future is female. So it's just a very precarious moment where we just have to make sure that if you feel like your vote might not matter, that's whose vote we need more than anyone else's. If you think that your vote might not be one that like, oh, what does it matter? What does it matter? It always matters. Does anyone remember what was the difference in Florida in 2000 when we almost had President Gore, the environmental president? 538 votes, I want to say 538 of those dangling chads.
I think it was even less than that, actually. I think that's
after like the second recount. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it came down to like 140 or something like that. The hanging chad, man. The hanging chad. So that's another reason to bring your focus to making sure that you vote technically. Hit that dark mark. Make sure I don't think they do hanging chad anymore for you youngins. That was when you punched the paper and the punch didn't go all the way through, and the little piece of paper that you had punched through did not dislocate from the actual paper, and it was hanging chad. Stephanie, do you have an announcement for us?
Oh, yes. The next winner is Mika.
Yay! Mika, you have won the Destiny 2 code. So you can go to Streamily. Streamily. Hold on. Please notify Streamily.
Oh, they put it in the chat. Partners at Streamily.com.
Partners at Streamily.com. Thank you.
Congratulations. Also, I just did a quick Google search. The final Florida tally in 2000, the difference was 537 votes.
Oh my God, Parv, you're right.
Nice.
You win the Price is Right.
I swear, I didn't even Google it. I did not even Google it. 538, wow. But Sissy, look, I was off one vote. I was lost.
It went down to one vote.
Yeah. Well, that explains why What's-His-Face's website is called 538, isn't it?
Exactly. Nate Silver's 538.
Yeah.
Guys, it's all coming together. It's all coming together.
A little headcount kind of trivia on that. That's where our organization was incepted, was because of that. Our founders were at a concert, and they said there was more people in this concert that if they all went out and voted could have made that difference.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So, yeah.
Grandpa
Um,
Parv here. When I drive down some store and I see some kids in line for the sneakers, you know, the new Adidas or the new Nikes that come out, I'm like, I hope you registered to vote.
I actually registered a bunch of people in Florida one year because I was doing this scavenger hunt called Gishwas. And one of them was registering, and I happened to be at a convention. So I literally just printed out the forms. It was a little bit of a pain because then I had to go and physically mail it versus like I had to look up each county's like governor's like elector's office to mail every. I thought I was just gonna put one for Florida, but it turns out I had to go ahead. But I think the learning experience for me was like, oh, you can just you probably should get partner with someone who is better at it. But like I was like, wow, I registered like 50 some people to vote. And the interesting thing too about the bulk of the people at that con was like a lot of them were college age. So they had to re-register because they were moving apartments for like the new school year or whatever. And that's something that we like forget about too for people who are at an age where they're like changing, where if you move, you need to update that information. But can we go back to talking about because this was because Parv, you mentioned how like in some places you're not allowed to give out free water, or because I think it could be viewed as electioneering. I don't know what the specific rules are by state. I think that you're like when I was working as a poll worker, they don't feed you. So they give you a break that you can go out, you can bring food or you can go out and get food. But we were so slammed. It was it was a primary election and we were very slammed. And then people brought us food, So I think you can give the poll workers food. You just can't give people standing in line stuff because then it'll be viewed as you're maybe buying their vote. So I do encourage giving poll workers food because if there's a crunch and you like, you can't leave. And even like I'm registered absentee, so I always vote absentee, but I always like bring a bunch of like Starbucks coffees and just like if I can order a pizza and I just drop it off at whatever the nearest polling place is for the people working there. So I do encourage that.
Yeah, there is that website, Pizza for the Polls, which is specifically for the poll workers, not for just pizza down the line.
They do give pizza down the line though.
Oh, okay. And I did see
apparently.
Was it?
They did, but I think some places are
apparently
trying
empanadas were also.
Yeah, I saw one of our commenters gave out empanadas. That's awesome. Cool.
Damien, just to circle back, as far as being of a certain age, jumping around apartment to apartment, is there on headcount? Is there an address that you can go and check and make sure that you're updated, that information is current?
Yes, you can go to. I can just send that to you guys if you want to post it on the link. It's easier than.
Yeah, if you want to just throw it in the chat. And then let's pick, Mika, you're going to get a t-shirt from Sissy. If you would like the Destiny 2, do not answer if you do not want the Destiny 2 link for the Witch Queen. What's a good trivia?
How about, do you know the name of your either mayor or local council? Give us the name of a representative who's local that represents you. Not your senator, that might be easy, not your governor, but somebody that's like in your town, in your city, in your neighborhood that represents you in government. Just post their name.
And while you're thinking about that, Jessica Strauss is on the line. Woo!
Hey, Courtney! Yay! This is my first live stream, so I'm very excited.
We're glad to have you.
I was listening in on you guys, and I'm so inspired by a lot of the stuff that you're saying, and a lot of information I didn't know. But the reason I joined in on this is because of what's happening in our country, and also I really feel like freedoms are being taken away. And if people go out and vote and they learn to use their voice, it's just going to empower people more to learn how to speak up and have the country that we used to have, and speak up for rights that were in our country's history so long ago, you know.
That's why we started Nerds Vote, really.
I know, it's all about that. And my parents are from Europe, and so they're first generation. So I think about why they came here. And they came here for freedom. They came here because they could speak and be themselves. My dad was a German Jew and came after World War II. And my mom came from Finland, and that country was constantly being attacked and taken over. So they came to the United States for freedom. And I think if we're losing our freedoms, it's so important to speak up. And so anyway, you guys are doing great. That's all I'm going to say. I just wanted to come in and say hi. I really believe in what you're doing.
And Jessica has, if you go to our streamily.com/nerdsvote page, Jessica and a bunch of other folks have put in their art that they have for sale to be autographed, and a portion of proceeds will go to NerdsVote for our education and outreach to make sure that people are registered and ready to vote in every election, every time. So thank you guys so much for that. And we have a winner for the Destiny code. Yes, we do.
And it is
Nzinga. Nzinga. I'm sorry. Said your name wrong, but you've crushed it with all of the answers. So please make sure that you give your information to the partners link so we can get you your Destiny 2 code. That's that.
Awesome. And Lindsay had to bounce. She is actually in the middle of doing some sword fighting competition. So yeah, she needs to go and fight somebody else. So while we're fighting the good fight, she is fighting an actual fight.
Yes, don't bring a sword either to the polls.
No weaponry of any kind. No swords, no shields, no gloves with
lightsabers.
Yeah.
No.
Nothing that could be construed as a weapon. So Jessica, one of the questions that we asked the group before we at the top was, no, don't worry, this isn't an expose.
Okay.
Do you have a voting memory that was special or funny, or something that was memorable to you? Could be voting for any election. Lindsay even brought up student body elections. So just any voting memory you have.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think the most recent ones, I realized that, because they have those boxes where you can just run up and put your votes in instead of standing in really super long lines and waiting to vote. So it's so much more easier to vote these days. I mean, that's what the first thing that comes to mind, that those boxes that are placed everywhere, even if you don't want to mail it in, you can just go in and vote, and then just go work out or do whatever. And it's so easy, voting. I've always voted, but I think lately it's become so much more emotional and important for me. That's all I can say, where it just becomes something where I'm like, my voice needs to be heard along with everyone else's, just feels more important these days.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I would also encourage people who, I know we're in a pandemic still, but like who feel safe and comfortable, if they want to volunteer as a poll worker, to do so, because it's super, super, honestly, it's super rewarding. The place that I volunteered at, our supervisor had not missed an election ever. He was a very, very, very elderly gentleman. He wore a shirt that had the American flag on it, and it was his one shirt. That shirt he always wore whenever there was an election day, and they never missed him and his daughter. His daughter actually had since moved to Seattle, but she kept her registration in Burbank because it was she volunteered as a poll worker with her dad ever since she turned 18. And so she drove back or flew back every single election, and her dad would volunteer together. They were experts at everything. And then there were some kids who were still like teenagers who couldn't vote yet, but for community service for their school were volunteering. But you really got a sense of like community, especially if you are a poll worker and you keep doing it again, it's like the same people, like summer camp. You see every election cycle, every so many years. And I think that like don't worry about like if you're not that knowledgeable, they do give you like a training video. And even I will say, well, when I watched the training video, I still had a lot of questions, but the older volunteers there are really helpful in like helping you through that. I see more and more now that polling places are closing down because they don't have enough volunteers or they're consolidating. So when I was volunteering, there was actually 2 different places in one place, in the same physical location because they were consolidating. So the more people who volunteer, the more places they can open up, which means that the people who have to vote in person or need to vote in person, they have more options to go to, So I do really encourage that. And it's a day. Be prepared though, like take the day off and be prepared to stay late because
Steph, how did you register to be a volunteer?
I registered by one of the times when I went in to vote. I just I used to always see another voice actor at I used to always see another voice actor whenever I went in to vote. And then I switched polling places. I didn't see him. But because I saw him all the time, I knew I was going to see him every time I went to vote. Then when I went in to vote, I was like, hey, how do you guys become a poll worker? And they were like, are you interested? And then they took down my email. And then a few months before the election, they just called me up. And they actually allowed me to pick the place that I wanted to work at, which I don't know if it is standard. And I chose the one right next to Out Loud Audio because it was right next to recording studio. I knew I was going to see a lot of friends come through that day, and actually it was a little bit crazy that morning because whoever was supposed to open up the space didn't show up. So it was like we were little 5 minutes before our polling place was supposed to open and we couldn't get into the space. And, my supervisor was prepared to be like, well, we're just doing it on the street. We're setting up these tables here. They were all like, but then luckily somebody came in and we kind of like mad dash, like set it up and stuff. But yeah, so that's how I did it. But I believe you can go online probably as well. And
well, actually, Damien, Headcount has a resource to be able to sign up for as a poll worker. Do they not?
Oh, you're muted, Damien. There you
go. There we go. Sorry about that. We started doing a lot of stuff with poll workers. I believe our site for that.
You can go to
EAC.gov.
There's the national website is www.eac, as in I think it's Election Assistance Committee or Coalition. E is an egg, A is an apple, C is in Courtney, and .gov, and that has a national resource for being a poll worker.
Yeah,
and they need young people because lots of older people who, as we saw during COVID, there were a lot of at-risk folks who were older who were doing that work and were not able to. So if you are young and able-bodied, please, or just able-bodied, please get out there and do it at least once.
Also, if you speak a foreign language, that's an asset too. I mean, they have a lot of like literature for, I think we had like 7 or 8 different languages, and one person who came through said that their neighbor the only reason they didn't come is because they only spoke Spanish and they thought they were going to have a hard time. But you know, but we were like, no, we have a Spanish speaker, you know? So, if you speak another language, it's an extra resource and it's really helpful. I just encourage it. It's such a great, I actually think it's a really great thing to do, but you will stay late. And this is for anyone who's ever having volunteered at a poll. Anytime someone tells me or tries to talk about like election fraud or voter fraud, and like having been through and stayed like almost till midnight trying to reconcile the voter registrations and counting and recounting, and then also using a counting machine and hand counting, having different people recount, like knowing that everything that we've gone through, like it's not like, I feel very confident I can speak based on personal experience that like it's not a thing that you can just, you know, stuff ballots, you know. So yeah, anyways, it's very empowering.
Awesome. And I think we're throwing some links in the chat for how you can sign up to be a poll worker. So absolutely do that.
And you don't need to be fluent. Sorry, someone just asked. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Let's oh yeah, go ahead.
I just was gonna ask, are there other links that maybe we could throw up there that are just resources for general questions? Because I feel like a lot of the time people don't vote just because they have questions that they think are maybe, they're just questions that they think aren't many people probably have the same question. And if they had a place to go to just answer just general questions about the ballot, about voting, which is, you know, hopefully what we're answering here, but just anything. I think, you know, when someone said that they don't vote because of their indecisiveness, like just anywhere to go to get questions answered so that you can feel empowered. Is there a spot that's a resource, a trusted resource?
So definitely headcount.org. We have a lot of FAQs there with, you know, especially with questions like, this is my first time voting, you know, what should I do? So forth. You can definitely find that on our site. You know, I know we've done tutorials as well for, you know, first time voters as well.
And in general, I think people can just ask. Just ask. Somebody else has the same question. People are happy to answer your questions. If you have questions at the polls, if someone doesn't know the answer, they'll ask someone else.
A lot of times when I haven't been sure in the past about an issue, I've looked in, I know they're a little biased, but I've looked in like the LA Times just before the election. Or I've looked, you can read about different, I don't know if that helps anybody, but the news often
helps to align yourself with, if there is a group that you identify with, there will usually be a guide with that. There's the League of Women Voters, if you are female or if you trust, you know, so there's a lot of resources for whatever communities you are identifying with, people in the LGBTQIA plus community. So just a little bit of research. And also, of course, we always really encourage you to get together with friends. You don't have to come to a consensus when you're putting your heads together with friends to look at some of the, you know, the issues that are on the ballot, information, and hey, here's a pro, here's a con, or this is a person that I like that agrees with this and I agree with them, but somebody else may say absolutely not. But just splitting the pie of doing the work. And looking on the internet for people and groups that you trust is really important. We do have to wrap up, which I hate because this has been so amazing and you guys are amazing for joining in. But we do have tons of resources for you. And also I see someone in the chat says, I know basic ASL, sign language, so important, you know, and also checking to make sure in advance when you are going to the polls that if there are people with language barriers or are differently abled, access, parking, going with a friend, making sure that you bring, water, a chair if you're going to need it in case the lines are long. Definitely, plan in advance. It's a few minutes here and there to get the information going, do your research, the issues, and also figure out how to make your voting experience as easy as possible when you can, and then enjoying it after the fact, getting together with friends, having cocktails, having dinner with your family, talking about the experience. It's all really important. So please check in the comments. Obviously, nerdsvote.com, headcount.org. A lot of the things that we've already put in there, screenshot it. Thank you to our guests for being. This is the first of what hopefully will be many more as we towards our midterm elections. So Sissy, Parv, Stephanie, Jessica, Ash, Lindsay had to run, Damien and all the great folks at Headcount, and Nason and Molly and Dave and everyone at Streamily. Please check out our streamily.com/nerdsvote page for all the generous folks, including Yuri Lowenthal and other folks are putting up artwork to benefit us. We so appreciate all of you guys, and JP, of course, thank you for co-founding NerdsVote with me. I'm so happy.
Absolutely. Stay tuned, everybody. There will be more. Thanks for being here.
Yes,
Thank you, everybody.
This will be posted on our channels, YouTube channels. Thank you.